Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Everything is Bad New Fangled Motion Picture Show.
Welcome one and all to a new episode of the Everything is Bad Newfangled Motion Picture Show. That's right, we're back recording another one. What was the last one we did?
Might have been Tenet.
I think it was Tenet. I'm your host, Niall.
And I'm Nolan.
And we're gonna be reviewing the newest Tom Hanks movie. I just couldn't think of the word for the movie. I don't know.
It's been a long time since you've seen one.
Oh yeah, it's been a bit. Anyway, we're gonna be reviewing the new Tom Hanks movie, News of the World.
Honest Thief.
Oh yeah, that was the last one we did, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, so, if you've been following us for a while, and no one has, so, you know, it's fine. You know that we here at Everything is Bad are fans of Westerns. We like them. Seem to be in the minority on that these days.
Yeah, they're not real popular nowadays.
But we like Westerns. One of my favorite movies that we've reviewed was the Sisters Brothers, for instance. But yeah, so this one is a Western, so it's kind of in our wheelhouse, you know. Oh, before we get too far into this, though, I do want to let everyone know we will do a spoiler-free review, and then we'll give you a spoiler warning and possibly go more in depth into the discussion after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, without further ado, I guess. So, this was actually a pretty good movie. I had a good time watching this movie.
I enjoyed it. There's only like 5 user reviews on IMDb. Excuse me. And 3 of them are negative reviews because they found the movie boring. At least at the time, like when we first walked out of the theater, they're only like the 5. And it's like, I don't know how you watch the trailer for this and think it's going to be an exciting movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the pacing of a Western. And if you are into Westerns, you understand what that means. I mean, yeah, it's paced like a Western, so it's kind of a slow roll.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of action in the movie. And so I don't know how anyone could have watched the trailer that was out there and think, yeah, that looks like an exciting movie, because it's not, but it's a good story.
Yeah. I will say that we were going to go see Wonder Woman, but the theater we were going to go to, which is pretty close to us, the only showing we could get into is at like 7:40, and that movie's like 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, we had stuff to do the next day.
And the theater that was showing it at a time that worked for us is like a 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive, and we just didn't feel like putting that much effort into seeing Wonder Woman 84. Not after all the other reviews we've seen on it.
Yeah.
So, we went and saw this instead, and we probably had a better time about it. So, yeah, but it follows, Tom Hanks plays this Civil War veteran, Kidd.
Yeah.
Captain Kidd.
Captain Jeffrey Kidd. Or something.
Jeffrey? I don't know. He's credited as Captain Kidd here on IMDb.
I think his name is like Jeffrey Kyle Kidd.
Yeah, Kyle was definitely
He always
in there.
introduced himself as his full name, Captain Jeffrey Kyle Kidd.
Yeah, and it's very much a Victorian era military thing where for the rest of your life you introduce yourself as that to everyone, regardless of the situation.
Right, but he makes a living traveling from town to town in Texas, reading newspapers.
Yep.
Because most people are illiterate. Let's face it. He never, infers that these people can't read the newspapers. Like, I understand you don't have time to read the newspaper.
Yeah.
But he'll set up in a barn or something, and they pay 10 cents a piece, and he reads the newspaper so they can get news from around the country or even around the world.
Yeah, so he actually, around this time, people actually were largely literate. Most people weren't well read and couldn't afford to read a lot.
Right.
Is
They
yeah,
read
so
their Bible on Sunday, and that was about it.
yeah, and so which is part of why the Civil War is so well documented, is because most people were able to write journals and letters and stuff. But anyway, so yeah, he travels around, and while he's on his way, he finds this girl, and I don't want to get too into in the non-spoiler section. I don't want to get too into the situation of him finding the
Basically,
girl, but
he needs to take her to her closest living relative.
yeah, she was captured by the Kiowa Indian tribe and was later um, liberated, I guess.
Yeah.
The word it's a weird situation, but and so yeah, she was being transported to her last remaining known relatives, and so Tom Hanks just sort of winds up deciding to help get her there. So and like he's dealt with some bad stuff in his time, having fought in the war, and so he's dealing with like inner demons along the way, and she's seen some horrible things, and the girl's seen some horrible things, especially for one so young. And yeah, it's a nice story, a kind of heartwarming ending and all that.
Yeah. This movie has a great cast though.
Yeah.
That girl,
Helena Zengel?
Yeah, I closed
Helena?
There it is. Yeah, Helena Zengel. She's really good, especially for her age. I don't know how old she is, because IMDb usually keeps that kind of information off for underage actors.
As they should.
Right. So she is a child. And so, but I was reading, this is her first English language, she's German, in her first English language movie.
not that she does a lot of English speaking, but...
No, but this first movie she's been in that English is the spoken language of the movie.
Yeah.
And I guess she'd won some Best Actress award for some German... at some German film festival or something for a movie she was in. Or she doesn't have like a whole lot of credits yet, but she's pretty good.
Yeah, I could see her winding up in more stuff. Kind of like that girl that was in Logan.
Yeah, well, she has gotten more stuff.
Yeah, she was really great in that, and everyone was like, "Holy crap, this child actor is amazing."
What's that?
His Dark Materials.
Yeah, His Dark Materials.
Yeah, I forget that actress's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, she kind of the same thing. Where like, unfortunately, this isn't gonna see as big an audience as Logan, but I hope it does expand some things for her, because like, yeah, she was great in this. And a lot of times, like, dealing with child actors, they have a tendency to like overact or have trouble really like conveying emotion well,
and
stuff. So, yeah, I think she did a great job.
Yeah, I don't think there was any performance that was subpar in any way in this
movie. Yeah, it's like
it's a lot of minor characters and two major characters.
Yeah, it's a lot of minor characters and Tom Hanks and this Helena girl. So, you could assume Tom Hanks is going to be good, right?
Right.
And like Tom Hanks, kind of showing his age in this movie, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, in his 60s now, right?
Yeah. What was that other movie? The same director. The one about the where he was the pilot that landed in the.
Oh, Miracle on the Hudson.
Yeah. It was the same actor or same director. Rather, I mean, he had like all white hair, and
yes, he was playing Sullivan.
Yeah,
Sullivan was like a middle name or something, though, right?
I don't remember. Anyway, so yeah, he was looking old in that too, but yeah, in this he's looking kind of grizzled as well. But that's the kind of the character.
Yeah.
But let's see, there's only
served with the 3rd Texas Infantry.
There was one scene with some not amazing CG.
Oh yeah,
Remember what it
that
was.
movie is just called Sully, by the way.
Yeah.
Um,
In this movie, there was one scene. Let's get back to the movie at hand.
Yeah,
Um,
this is now a Tom Hanks podcast.
yeah.
So yeah, it's that scene where there's a westerny type shootout happening, and they push the boulder down the hill.
Oh yeah, and they pushed this boulder down a hill. And
Yeah,
the boulder was
this
kinda,
like 2-foot wide boulder down the
yeah,
hill, and
the
it was
boulder was CG, obviously.
it was a bit rough.
But other than that,
Yeah, I mean the costumes were great, and I'm a bit of a history snob, especially for this time period, being a reenactor. But I couldn't really find any complaints about the clothing and such. Although there was some people where I'm like, now that's an expensive article of clothing that guy has.
yeah.
Like there was one guy where I'm like, that's a double-breasted frock coat. That's not super cheap. It was undyed though. So, but anyway.
You might have stolen off a dead person.
That's true. So he the only real issue I think I found from like a historical standpoint is I don't think that the cartridge conversion for the Remington Navy or the Remington New Army was super common by that point. I don't even know what year that came out, but I don't think they were very common at that point, and they were very expensive. You notice that the Remington that Tom Hanks was using and he was loading cartridges into, there was a cartridge conversion for that. It was a cap and ball revolver originally, and there was a conversion for using cartridges.
Yeah, well, especially because he
brass
borrowed
cartridges.
He borrowed that from his friend, and wasn't that his friend had kept it after the war? Like
Yeah,
his friend had it.
yeah, and they definitely didn't issue
Yeah.
that, and I don't think that was even a thing until like 1866 or 67 or something.
Yeah.
So that was my only real issue, is that like.
But how are you going to have a long shootout with...
Well, what they should have just done is had to have multiple loaded cylinders.
Yeah.
I mean, because that was the point of that particular revolver anyway. But yeah, that was really my only issue from a historical standpoint, was like some of the pistols just seemed a little too advanced for the time period they're going for, because this is a time, I mean, this is not long after the Civil War. Like there's still
like
federal
68 or something.
Yeah, like there's still federal troops stationed in Texas to keep the peace, and they're still equipped with 1861 Springfields. So this is before the federal army had upgraded to trapdoors, and so they're also at a point where Texas hasn't been accepted back into the Union officially yet because they haven't ratified the 13th Amendment, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a part of the subplot at one point too. I mean,
yeah, like that. Yeah, that gets mentioned, and that's just sort of like that's used as a device to show like the mentality of the common folk in Texas at the time,
Mm-hmm.
And like, so yeah, it's definitely not long after the Civil War. So as a result of that being established, yes, some of the guns to me I think were a little too advanced for the time period. But other than that, I think things were pretty well done. The uniforms on all the military guys looked fine, but that's a no-brainer. I mean, Civil War uniforms are real easy to get a hold of. There's no reason for a movie studio to get that wrong.
Yeah. So, are we ready to move on to our spoiler portion?
Yeah, I suppose there's not a whole lot to spoil. I mean,
All
like,
right, throw up a spoiler
yeah, there's
warning.
a spoiler warning, but just be like, yeah, there's not really a whole lot to spoil. I mean, the ending's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, so this girl that he finds, turns out that when several years ago, some which tribe was it?
Kiowa
had attacked her
homestead,
killed the rest of her family, and captured her. So she's been living amongst them for years. And
she only speaks Kiowa and a little bit of German.
because her family were German homesteaders.
Yeah, and she was very young when she was taken.
Yeah. So the some federal troops were trying to push these Kiowa out or something.
Yeah.
Right?
So some Kiowa were killed by federal troops, and I think it was to do with pushing them onto a reservation. And they find this blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl amongst them, white girl, and they're like, well, she's clearly not Kiowa.
Mm-hmm.
And so they, they figure out who she is and are transporting her to her only living relatives, which is her aunt and uncle, her mother's sister, and her husband, on this farm, this like community that's being established, like southern Texas.
Yeah.
And so Tom Hanks encounters her. He's on his way from one town to another because he travels around, and he finds this wagon that's been destroyed, and the horse is killed. And he gets off of his horse and he's walking along, and he finds this black man who's been lynched and has a sign. It was like Texas won't allow blacks or what? Some racist bullshit.
Yeah.
Some racist, hateful thing. And
but it is strange that they would put a black person in charge.
Yeah, and that
time period.
That was
Texas.
strange. That was strange to me because I'm like, I don't know that necessarily the federal government wouldn't be willing to hire a black man for that kind of role, but I don't think that the Office of Indian Affairs would give a mission to a black guy in Texas in the 1860s.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would be that. I mean, because that's going to only end poorly. As shitty as that is, like that's the case, So, yeah, that seemed a little weird. But he finds this girl nearby, the main girl, Johanna, and she's all wild looking, wearing buckskins, and he finds the papers that are authorizing the guy from the Office of Indian Affairs to transport her and like explain
Indian agent.
Her agent. Yeah, what?
They call him the Indian agent.
The Indian agent, yeah. And so they finds the papers explaining like what his task was and who the girl is and all that. So he takes her down to Dallas?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And takes her to the federal encampment or whatever there, and some like major basically tell him like, look, I don't have time for this. And the Indian agent for this post isn't going to be back. He's up on the reservation. He's not due back for like a month. So
Tom Hanks can't stay
put that long. So Tom Hanks decides ultimately that he'll take her with him, and
he knows the way.
He knows the way.
He knows the town that she's
right.
Her family's in.
He's kind of reluctant to go because the town is near San Antonio.
Yeah. Right,
which is where he's from before the war, and you can tell that he just doesn't want to go back there. So, but he's decides he'll deal with that and takes her south. And along the way, they encounter various sordid sorts. There's a shootout.
Some guys want the girl for
unsavory.
You can imagine, unsavory things,
and he starts a riot. So he encounters this town where they're like killing all the buffalo or all the bison in the area and processing the hides, and they're like, we're our own independent whatever free county or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't recognize federal authority or whatever. And it's kind of a tense scene, and like uh, Tom Hanks starts a riot by like he doesn't want to read the propaganda that the mayor or whatever,
the guy who runs the town. I mean, this place is like Barter Town almost, but
yeah,
the guy who runs the town wants him to read from his own newspaper, and Tom Hanks is like, "Well, it seems like there's nothing in here that y'all don't know about. So, how'd you like to learn about this mine collapse in
Pennsylvania,
and right,
which is a much more interesting story than whatever propaganda the guy wanted him to read.
And so, when the townsfolk riot when the guy tries to put a stop to it, and he gets away in the
ensuing chaos.
Yeah,
and like
they eventually find the remains of the house that the girl was from, so they know they're nearby where they need to go, and
yeah,
he takes her to her family, and along the way, obviously they bond quite a bit, and he takes her to her family and leaves her there, but later decides that he misses her.
So the whole like throughout the movie, it brings up his wife, and like there's like he encounters in Dallas, he encounters this old friend of his, this lady who runs a boarding house or something, or an inn or whatever, and she's like, you need to go back to San Antonio and make it right with your wife and like all this, and they sort of hint that like, oh, he
left under bad
terms, and like I don't know what, a third of the way into the movie I leaned over and was like, his wife's dead, right?
Yeah, and so you get there and you find out, she died while he was away in the war.
Yeah.
And he never forgave himself for not being there when it happened.
He also thinks that it's God's punishment for all the horrible things that they did and fought for during the war. And so he goes back there and like
takes the girl.
Yeah.
Her family, they're willing to let her go because she's particularly good at farm work.
Yeah, so she's not. Yeah, I mean, she's basically a Kiowa child for all intents and purposes. Like she was so young when she was taken. She's fluent in Kiowa, only speaks a little bit of German, and is learning English throughout the movie. And she's not a farmer. She doesn't know how to farm. Is unwilling to do that kind of work. She keeps trying to run away.
Yeah.
So, they just let Tom Hanks take her, basically.
Yeah. And the movie ends with him reading the news somewhere, and he finishes up with this funny story out of New Orleans where this guy is presumed dead when he's not, and he's buried, and this wedding party.
It's a long setup for a dumb joke.
Yeah, and at the end, but she's his assistant there, and he introduces her as Johanna Kidd, like, so he's adopted her.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's where it ends. So it's it's a nice heartwarming ending ultimately, and so, but yeah, it's a crawl, man, which is fine. Like you just got to go into it knowing it's a Western. It has the pacing of a Western. Don't dock it for that because that's intentional. Like that's.
Yeah, I mean, when we say Western, we're not talking about like Tombstone.
Yeah.
Here,
which
has a much more modern sensibility in its filmmaking.
Yeah, no, we're talking like some like old school spaghetti Western, like long travel sequences with the occasional shootout.
Yeah.
I
mean, there is a shootout in the movie, so.
Yeah. There's also some real tense moments where some people get shot that I wouldn't exactly call a shootout.
Yeah. I mean, the movie is more character driven than plot driven, really.
Yeah. So, but I recommend it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good movie.
It's probably better than Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it's not going to get
everything I've heard.
It's shorter than Wonder Woman. I don't think it's gonna get a lot of attention just because of the kind of movie it is.
The kind of movie it is, and the situation of the release.
Yeah.
Which, they were probably willing to just go ahead and release it anyway because it doesn't look like it costs that much money to make. I don't know what the budget is, but like
Tom Hanks' fee is probably the biggest part of it.
right. Yeah, Tom Hanks has got to be like the most expensive part of this movie because it's a bunch of like no-name actors. Like I think Tom Hanks is the only one from this I even recognized.
Well, there are a lot of actors in here I recognize, but they're character actors. They're usually in small parts, or you see them pop up here and there in movies, and they're all really good. But they're what's called a character actor. They're never going to be like anyone carrying a movie.
Right. So, yeah, and then like not a whole lot in the way of props. The costumes are pretty available. I mean, like there's a lot like
probably getting the whole cast and crew to some of these locations in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Where they shot it. Some budget in there, but building like
flying the German girl into the US.
Building the the towns.
Yeah.
Which is probably all done like the same place, just rearranging buildings,
different angles, because like there's not really a whole lot of like establishing shots of the town. It's like, okay, we're in San Antonio now, and here's a mission, and that's the extent of it. And then they focus in on the particular building he's going into. Like, there's not a whole lot of him like walking through the whole town or anything.
Right, but especially the other the town he starts off in is like Itchua Falls or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Dallas and stuff, and they're still these like frontier towns, so they probably used the same location with their building facades, just moved them around or whatever, or changed the signage or whatever to just not a lot of variety there anyway.
Right. So yeah, it's just like I could be wrong. This could have gone way over budget or just cost way more money than it ought to have, but it just doesn't look like it cost a whole lot of money to make this movie.
No.
They don't have that listed on IMDb, right? So
sometimes they do, but
they don't for this currently, as of this recording. So
sometimes that.
Oh wait, no, here it is. Here, hold on. Oh wait, no, this is box office. Opening weekend, 2.4 million. Probably cost more than that to make, though.
Yeah.
So please go see this movie. I just like to encourage them making more westerns anyway.
I don't think there's a whole lot of money being spent on promotion though.
No, like I remember seeing a couple of trailers and a few posters in the movies, but like, I mean, the Wonder Woman ad, she can't escape them, man. Just all over them.
But I also remember seeing the trailers for this months ago, because I know it got pushed back. But then like they didn't pick it up again, I don't think. Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a pretty good movie.
Yes.
I liked it.
Definitely. So go check it out. So the next movie we're gonna see, probably Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah, might be next week though.
Yeah.
It's hard to say what we're gonna see and when though. At
So
this
like
point.
Wonder Woman, we're probably gonna see.
Oh, at some point we're gonna do Soul, right?
Yeah. We gotta find time for that though. Just looking through the upcoming movies, there's not really anything listed in January. Yeah, I'm just going through here. Oh man, I know you're real excited for that Frances McDermott movie, Nolan. What was that called?
I don't even know.
Nomad something.
Nomad's Land.
Nomad's Land?
Yeah.
That was a joke, by the way.
I'm not really excited.
No one's excited for a Frances McDormand movie.
No, Frances McDormand's fine.
Yeah, that movie looks boring as hell, though.
Yeah.
And this is from people who like westerns.
Yeah.
So
that looks like a modern western too, like a western set in modern day.
Yeah, like the roving person going from town to town.
It just doesn't look that exciting.
Very
and artsy. I don't have a problem with Frances McDormand. I mean, I liked that 3 Billboards over Edding, Missouri.
Oh yeah, that was really good. That's true. So this Nobody in February, the end of February, might be the next movie that we go see. Other than
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman, starring the guy who played Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad. Which I was like, oh, that's cool. He's leading a movie. I don't know that he's done that before. I mean, he was a great side character in Breaking Bad, and then I assume he was great in Better Call Saul. I never watched that much of it. But he's basically just done a bunch of TV. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in that.
Maybe this will be the next John Wick.
It's by the same director, right? Or one of the same
writer or producer.
Director Ilya Naishiller. Oh, he did Hardcore Henry. So this will be interesting then. Yeah, I liked Hardcore Henry. Kind of weird, but it was cool. See, that might actually be the next thing we go see other than Wonder Woman. And man, well, was Warner Brothers? So Warner Brothers announced that the Kingsman's in March. Yes. So they announced that all their movies are going to be dual released in theaters and HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
And they said that all the stuff that was being pushed back sort of indefinitely, they were going to establish new release dates for, but I don't think they've done that yet. I think they were probably waiting to see how Wonder Woman did.
Probably.
Because man, I want to see Dune and Matrix 4. So yeah, just going through here, Bob's Burgers the movie?
For real? Wow.
Plot unknown, feature film based on the animated TV series. That's what IMDb says. Looking through it, like it kind of looks like that basically there's like 1, maybe 2 movies a month throughout most of the year. So,
God, like a movie every week like we used to.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2 movies in a week.
Yeah, I missed that. No Time to Die and Mortal Kombat are slated for April, so that'll be an exciting month.
Yeah.
But yeah, so stick around. I swear we're going to continue reviewing movies, but they just need to release movies for us to review. So, man, wasn't Free Guy going to come out in December? They ended up pushing that?
I think so.
Looks like, jeez. Anyway, so yeah, that's what we got coming up. Hopefully that doesn't get screwed up even further. But yeah, like we're so desperate for movies, we're probably even gonna go see F9. So, take that for what you will. Because that movie looks dumb. But yeah, please go see movies if you can in your area. I swear it's a safe. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so take it with a grain of salt. But they really are like wiping down everything and drenching the seats in this like quick drying disinfectant stuff
and keeping social distance.
Yeah, at least around here, when you go to buy tickets, they force 2 empty seats between groups on the Fandango app. So yeah, I mean they're really doing what they can, and I mean, the times we've been during all the COVID stuff, they've been very strict about this stuff and trying to be very safe. So please, if you can, go see movies. Encourage studios to actually release stuff in theater. Like, I don't understand why they didn't also release Soul in theaters.
I don't get it.
Because we would have gone to see that.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, yeah. I guess until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Totals.